Well, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Welcome to those who we've never met before, and welcome to all those on Zoom on this kind of eerie evening. The quality of light when there's a lot of smoke in the air is very unusual. It creates a state of mind for me, anyway. I don't know about you, but when the air's like this, there's kind of a sadness that comes over me. And I think about, I was reading something in the Times about the effect on this kind of air quality on birds who are tiny, and they completely depend on their little bodies to filter the air, and it's much more challenging for them. Their system is so small. But that's not what I'm going to talk about tonight. I was looking through some old talks, and I came across a talk that I gave in 2010 on the Iddhipada. And the occasion of that talk was the beginning of bringing to the Sangha the possibility of developing a Zen center. We at that time were sitting at the yoga center downtown, and we had to set up every day, every Sunday, and close it down, and we couldn't do anything beside that. So the Iddhipada was it's called the Pathways to Success, the teachings that the Buddha gave on success. What are the characteristics that mark our efforts when we are successful? And I thought at the time, and once again, it's a good thing to revisit, because when we talk about success, the thing that we're doing all together here is success in quieting the mind, in opening the heart, and learning how to meet our circumstances with skill and goodness, and in living in such a way that we bring some of that into the world to the extent that each of us can. So as we go forward, we can be guided by the Buddhist teachings, both in our how we approach our meditation practice, and also how we approach our activities in the world. 4 principles for success. So Iddhipada is it's found. The Iddhipada teachings are found in the Pali Canon in several different places, and they can, depending on how intricately you want to dive into the teaching, it can go very, very, very minute. I'm not going to take the most minute path tonight. Iddhipada, so in Sanskrit, Iddhi refers to potency or power. And pada is the basis, the base for power, for potency. So these are the qualities that, these 4 qualities come forward from samadhi. Samadhi, which is our total self-collectedness. Samadhi in zazen, samadhi in activity, wholehearted activity. And Uchiyama Roshi has talked about samadhi as when the self has settled upon the self. So, when you're sitting in zazen and there's this remarkable quietude that comes over, or this gladness, maybe, occasionally. Often when we're sitting in zazen, we're struggling. The mind is struggling with itself. But there is a time when the mind stops struggling with itself and we can just relax. And then the sense of concentration, of rightness, of fullness is profoundly wonderful. The same is true when we're doing something that we love to do. It's often characterized by this. Part of the loving to do something is that we are in samadhi as we do it. We're not resisting, we're not oppositional in our activity, but we're all in. So that can happen when you're playing an instrument. That can happen when you're gardening, when you're cooking, when you're biking, when you're swimming, when you're walking, anything, sewing, reading. You can just notice when you are wholeheartedly surrendered into activity. That's a form of samadhi in action. So the four qualities are concentrate. So samadhi is also concentration, right? Concentrated activity. So one of the reasons why we really emphasize regular zazen is because we are becoming so intimately familiar with just the mind that is, right? And so we can then apply it. That's one of the beauties of zazen, is we really understand that the mind can really relax and can be one with whatever is going on. So concentration, the first one is concentration on intention, concentration on effort, concentration on consciousness, and concentration on investigation. These are the four characteristics. These qualities are used to develop wholesome mental states and rid ourselves of unwholesome mental states. So wholesome mental states are fun, at ease, complete, no problem, right? Unwholesome mental states are troubled in some kind of way. There are a lot of different kinds of troubled mental states: restlessness, anguish, right? But these qualities are all the basis for concentration. So intention, being clear on our purpose or our desired outcome or involvement, effort or energy, aligning our sense of will and electing to really join with the intention, consciousness or mind or thoughts. So bringing all of the cognitive equipment that we've got to bear on whatever we're undertaking. And then investigation or discrimination, which is learning about the content, the specifics of what we're undertaking. So when we started to think about starting a Zen center, there was, first of all, the first step that we had to take was to really look into whether we were willing to take this on, whether we were willing to really embrace the intention. And to do that, we had to think about, do we have the energy to do it? Can we really apply our attention to it as thoroughly as we knew we would need to, because it would be a complicated undertaking? And could we really master the skill, learn all the things that we needed to investigate before we even made the commitment, before we even said, yes, we have an intention? So that whole process took a lot of years, actually. A few of you were around for it. So the first one, intention, or intention. Joining with, bringing our heart to whatever we're going to do. How wholehearted am I willing to be? And I say willing because it's a good thing to look at. How willing are you to practice? How willing are you to sit and relax the mind? How willing are you to follow the breath, to befriend the breath? One of the things that's really interesting about breath practice is we become aware after a while of how, well, maybe you don't, but I do occasionally, how much I hold back. Even when I'm just not doing anything but sitting and breathing, how much am I holding back? Oh, I think I'd rather think about this other thing. I don't really want to follow my breath. It's so boring. Right? I mean, there's so many different little angles in this. So, thinking about how willing am I to do something or other. Especially knowing when we were thinking about a Zen Center, we recognized, any of us who've bought a house or started any other project are aware of how much is involved. And the thing is that you know what's involved, and you also know that you don't even know what's going to be the biggest stumbling blocks. You just don't until you get started in anything. What's going to be trouble? You know, we think we know. Yeah, but it always surprises. So the starting point is to be interested. To be interested and to be willing in order to be intentional. So, you know, one of the general questions is, whose life am I living? Am I really willing to live my life as it is? And I think that, you know, one of the things that's poignant about that is that you can come to realize that, oh, actually, it never occurred to me to ask myself that question, if I'm willing to live my own life. Because it might take a lot of courage, actually, to depart from all the shoulds that you were trained in, or you assumed, and to go the way that was right for you. So getting to know yourself, which is one thing that happens with Zen practice, or any kind of spiritual practice, is we really get to know ourselves, which is one reason why compassion is so stressed. Is so emphasized. I don't mean stressed. We don't want to stress our compassion. Because to know ourselves, we need to be willing to see everything about ourselves, all our states of mind and actions. So in this practice of a life based on a large vow, and Zen practitioners have this vow to awaken for the sake of all beings. Because there is no real awakening without including all beings. It's very partial if it's just for ourselves. And it doesn't work beside that. So if you do Zazen every day, if you're really clear on your intention, you're more likely to do it. If you're saying, am I willing to take up a daily practice? And you'll also notice when you choose to skip it. And everything all the static that comes up when you don't. I mean, so often in Sanzen, when people come in, they say, with a lot of guilt, oh, I haven't been practicing, and there's a lot of static when you don't do it, if you've had that intention. So we want to be clear on our intentions and then follow through. Wanting to stay with the breath is necessary to sit Zazen. We can't sit Zazen unless we're willing to stay with the breath. Wanting to embody our life well is necessary in order to live fully. So there's nothing that we do during the day that isn't valuable when we have taken on the intention to be wholehearted. there's a kind of quality of fulfillment that comes when we really agree that everything in our life is practice. Nothing is taking us away from practice. And how we live is how well we follow this intention, and we remember our intention to be awake and to be of benefit. So then the next quality characteristic is energy, virya, spiritual energy, muscle energy, wholeheartedness, the energy of the heart. So we remind ourselves, whenever we do a chanting service, we dedicate it at the end. We dedicate it to give ourselves completely to the Buddha way. We're just reminding ourselves of our intention. Reminding ourselves over and over of the intention to give ourselves means that nothing is left out and nothing is left over. Everything is burned up in the energy of living fully. We have that line in the 5 remembrances, our deeds are our closest companion. That's another statement like this. It's like everything we do is what our life is. Body activity, mental activity, verbal activity. We give it our best effort and our energy. Giving ourselves over fully. And I don't mean, the energy you have when you're 20 is different from the energy you have when you're 70. But giving yourself over, so the emphasis is giving yourself over fully, which would include giving yourself over fully to a nap. Or giving yourself over fully to changing the tire on the car. Or to make sure that the garden is weeded. Giving our best effort. Then the next one, citta, the third one, one's mindset. We talk about bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the mindset that is in alignment with living for the benefit of all beings. Citta, committing oneself to the task. The heart of total oneness, the mind of total oneness. The mind, the awareness that keeps track of how everything contributes. Everything that we do has consequences, has results. So we're paying attention to what we're doing. And when we've resolved to do something, even though it's difficult and complicated and takes time, we don't abandon it just because it's difficult, which is totally something we really got clear when we were building the Zen Center. One thing after another did not go as we had predicted. There was always something more that was stretching us, and I think most of us had times when we were like, oh God, why did we ever begin this project? It was such a hassle, there was so much hassle. So this is the ground of oneness in our life. This is where oneness lies, not separating from difficulties. This is dedication, what we're doing, when we're really dedicating to something. We think about it frequently. So what do you think about frequently? It's another thing that's really, really important to notice. What are you thinking about frequently? One thing that I think about frequently is how to arrange the zendo. I have a new idea. You'll probably one day come in and see what it is. But whatever it is, what do you think about frequently? And make sure that you're using your thinking in service to what's important to you about it. Be intentional. Be wise. Most of us here, that everybody has a lot of skill. And so how do we want to use that? Especially for things we don't choose. I mean, you know, we choose certain things in our life. We don't choose probably most of the things in our life. So those are also, you know, what to be paying attention to. Like, I don't want to do it, therefore I'll only do it in a half-assed way. Well, that's silly. It's silly because it's not practical, because it's not going to be fun if you do something half-assed. You know, no matter what it is, if you do it with your whole heart, it turns out to be okay. And there's always learning. There's always learning. So when we talk about ending suffering, this is one of the ways we do it, is we get willing to do things that we didn't choose to have to deal with. And this is also one of the benefits and the outcomes of Samu, work practice in Zen training, is we're given things that we don't want to do. You know, the most senior students are given the job of cleaning the toilets. We try to continue to challenge ourselves, to bring ourselves wholeheartedly to whatever it is. Because that's really that's caring for all of life, all of the different aspects of life. Our life, which acknowledges, you know, with this attitude, we acknowledge the infinity of our life, the infinite forms that our life takes. We don't say, my life's going to be this and it's not going to be that. Same is true when practicing with precepts. We really look deeply into precept practice because we don't want to say, I just want to kind of float over life and not get dirty. Well, most of us are brought into all kinds of unskillful action. And we want to learn about it, because if we're not willing to be in relationship to that, and I don't mean encouraging acting out all kinds of things that are harmful, but unless we're willing to be in relation to all the ways that we don't behave with care, kindness, benefit, then if we're not willing to have that in ourselves, then we reject that in anybody else. If we're really going to cultivate compassion for all beings, we really have to know personally and be willing to know personally every state of mind. And then the fourth is wise investigation. And that happens naturally when we just don't go through the motions, but we really engage whatever we're doing. We discern what's going well and what's not going well, and we learn and become more skillful as we do that. It's a natural process. When you're taking a look, you naturally become more skillful. And so we don't want to take for granted that we know something. We want to really think about it carefully, whatever we're taking on. So, for instance, with the breath, it's good to remind ourselves of why we want to be with the breath in Zazen. It's the life force. We got it. It's here. It's foundational. Of all the elements of the body, it's the most responsive to the mind. So if you want to sit here for long periods of time, which we tend to do, then it's good to be able to play with the breath. Play with the breath. Make it comfortable. When spreading that sense, and then when we get comfortable with the breath, we can spread that sense of comfort throughout the body. It happens naturally. And the outcome of that is it's pleasant to be here. This is what we mean by wholesome activity, right? It's pleasant. It's healthy. It supports our well-being. So being able to stay with the breath, wanting to stay with the breath, the more comfortable we can make it, the easier it's going to be to want to stay here. Which is what we notice when we have happened upon an experience of samadhi once you've had even a moment of non-opposition to experience, you want to get it more. Because it is so comfortable and so familiar that we've forgotten it. Very often people will say after they've had a taste of samadhi, I forgot about that. So the more we want to stay here and deepen total self-collectedness, or settling ever more thoroughly onto the self. As Ushiyama instructs us, the self settling upon the self. If you're not comfortable in your breath, then we use our effort and energy and persistence to become more comfortable. Try longer breathing and shorter breathing and fast breathing and however you can play with the breath. Remember a time when it felt really good to breathe. Sometimes that's the imagination is your friend in Zazen in that way. The mind of awareness. So when the mind is wandering, we bring it right back. If it wanders off again, we bring it back again. And you've got to show the mind that you mean business. Chosen was always saying that. Show the mind that you mean business. Show the aspect of mind that is used to being in control, that it's not always going to be in control, that it's not necessary, thank you, I'm going to do something else right now. Oh yeah, so when we take up awareness of in and out breathing, and we really settle into that, we only sit for like 25 minutes. Is that how long it is on Sundays? 25 minutes? Half hour? It's possible to really settle in. It takes a few minutes to really drop into and relax into in and out breathing. But once it's going, then you can open awareness to the edges of it, to the edges of awareness. So this practice is all about investigation. We're investigating our mental stream, we're investigating our quality of heart, our energy, our intention. And whether they serve our ability to be present and healthy and at ease. So you can notice how these 4 characteristics are working for you. They work intimately together. They're not separate, actually. The desire and the intention, bringing energy to our intention, looking carefully into every phase to see what's accurate and helpful, and what gets in the way of a desired outcome. This all determines our way of living with wisdom and clarity and compassion in our work, and what we do in the world, what we contribute, what is our contribution. So if you don't want to do meditation, it's very hard to pay attention, to pay careful attention. If you're not paying careful attention, how can you figure out what's going right and what's going wrong? And when you figure something out, what does it mean unless you actually make an effort to use that insight to make things better? So all these qualities set out in the Iddhipada, work together. It's simply a matter of which one you're going to emphasize at the moment. examining cause and effect, pros and cons, evaluating, and using the way that you discern the outcome, how you could do it better, or if it was great. You know, you cook a meal. Sometimes you realize, oh, I could have done that. I would have done less salt or whatever it is, right? But sometimes you cook something and it's like just right, just right. So, Shoto Harada Roshi, who we dedicate our practice to, says, simply face what we need to face and move forward with courage. And I say yes to that. Thanks for listening.